welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we explore topics you're curious about, aiming for that deep understanding, but keeping it accessible, not like reading a textbook.
Exactly.
So today, we're going to dive into how we learn, how we grow, really, within our social worlds. We know you've been asking about the big ideas that help explain all this, so our mission is to sort of unpack these complex theories, get to the heart of what matters without all the heavy academic jargon.
That's the plan. And we're going to touch on some really fascinating ways of thinking about how we become, well, us, socially speaking.
Like what?
Well, think about how much we learn just by watching others, or that really deep need we all have for connection, and also what actually drives us from the inside.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah, we'll look at some frameworks that give us some powerful insights into these really fundamental parts of being human.
All right, let's start there then. With that idea of learning by watching, how does that work? It sounds like we're all just sort of constantly taking notes on each other.
In a way, yeah. We are social creatures after all. And observation is, well, it's a primary way we figure things out.
Right.
I mean, just think about kids learning from their parents. It's often the subtle stuff,
Like how they handle stress.
Exactly. Or the tone of voice they use when they're annoyed. Kids absorb all that, sometimes even more than the things parents tell them directly. And this can create these patterns, things that echo across generations. You sometimes see parents using the same discipline styles they grew up with, maybe without even fully realizing it.
Wow. But it can't just be simple imitation, can it? I mean, some things we see, we copy, others we don't. What makes the difference?
Good point. It's not just mimicry. That's where reinforcement and punishment come into the picture. If we see someone get praised or, rewarded for doing something, we're probably more likely to think, hey, maybe I should try that.
Makes sense.
And the opposite is true, too, right? If we see someone face negative consequences for an action, we tend to back off from that behavior ourselves.
So we learn from other people's successes and mistakes, too.
Precisely. It's this constant feedback loop, even when we experience it secondhand, that shapes our understanding of what works, what's okay, what's not.
Huh. It really makes you think, doesn't it? If we know we're being watched, what kind of example are we setting, even when we don't mean to?
That's a really important question. Okay, so that's one big piece, observation. But let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about something else fundamental, that need for connection, especially right from the start.
Attachment, right?
Exactly. Attachment theory, or what we can broadly call social relational theory. It's profound how those very first relationships really set the stage.
How so?
Think about the main caregiver, usually a parent, as a kind of secure base.
A secure base.
Yeah. If a baby consistently feels safe, loved, and cared for, they develop the confidence to explore the world around them. They know they have this safe haven, this reliable source of comfort to come back to. And that comes from the caregiver being warm, sensitive, responding to the baby's needs, helping them manage their big feelings. It's all crucial for building that security.
And that security isn't just good for the baby, is it? It probably has wider effects, too.
Oh, absolutely. You could definitely argue that fostering that early security leads to more resilient, more pro-social individuals later on. It benefits everyone, really.
So how do these early experiences keep affecting us? We don't just stop needing security when we're toddlers.
No, we don't. Those early interactions help build what psychologists call internal working models.
Internal working models.
Okay.
What are those?
They're basically our deep-seated beliefs about ourselves and about what we can expect from other people in relationships.
Like blueprints.
Kind of, yeah. If your caregiver was consistently there for you, responsive and warm, you likely develop a model where you see yourself as, worthy of love, and you tend to see others as generally reliable and trustworthy.
And if the early experiences weren't so positive,
well, then the models might look different. Inconsistent care or neglectful care can lead to models where maybe you feel unworthy, or perhaps you're more suspicious of others, expecting them to let you down.
Wow. And these blueprints, they follow us into adulthood. Into romantic relationships.
Very much so. It's fascinating how they can shape how we approach intimacy, trust, conflict, all of that. There's even research suggesting a link between a mother's own early attachment experiences and how she relates to her child.
So these patterns can literally be passed down.
It seems that way, yeah.
Yeah.
Those internal working models are powerful determinants of parenting behavior.
Okay, that's a lot to think about regarding connection. Now, what about this other drive you mentioned? The desire for control. How does that play into social development?
Right, control theory. This taps into another key aspect of, human motivation. our sense of agency. The theory suggests a lot of our behavior is driven by this fundamental need to feel like we have some control, some say, over our circumstances.
And you see that in parenting, too.
Oh, definitely. I mean, parents naturally try to guide their kids, right? Setting rules, teaching right from wrong. It's partly about keeping them safe, partly about preparing them for the world. It's a form of control, in a sense.
But that control thing can go too far, can't it? It's not always helpful.
Absolutely. That's a critical point. When parents lean too heavily on what's called psychological control, it can really backfire.
What do you mean by psychological control?
Things like withdrawing affection when a child makes a mistake, or making them feel ashamed for having certain feelings or thoughts. Love withdrawal, guilt induction, shaming, that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah, I can see how that would be damaging.
It really can be.
Yeah.
While those tactics might seem to work in the short term, they might get the child to comply, the research strongly suggests they can harm a child's self-worth, their emotional health, in the long run. It's quite prevalent in some cultures, actually, but the costs can be high.
So thinking about parents,
Yeah.
we often focus on the basics, like food and shelter. But it sounds like their role is much, much bigger in shaping development.
Exactly. That brings us to parental role theory. This really emphasizes that parents are active, intentional guides. They aren't just providing the necessities.
They're steering the ship, so to speak.
That's a great way to put it. They actively steer kids toward positive pathways. This happens through direct teaching, sure, like skills and values, but also by warning them about negative influences or bad role models. It's like they're constantly trying to calibrate the child's developmental course.
Trying to build a sort of protective shield while also teaching them how to navigate dangers.
Precisely. We talk about parental preventative strategies.
Yeah.
That's where parents consciously manage the environment, who their kids hang out with, what media they consume to minimize exposure to risks.
Okay.
But it's also more subtle. There's something called trajectory mediation.
Trajectory mediation.
Yeah, it's about how parents influence the way kids interpret their experiences. Like after a setback or a difficult situation, a parent can help the child process it, talk it through what's sometimes called debriefing. They help frame it in a way that builds resilience, rather than letting the child just dwell on the negative.
Guiding their thinking about experiences, that's powerful.
It really is.
Now let's talk about changing family structures. We hear more about stay-at-home dads these days. How does that fit into these social theories?
Stay-at-home fathers, or SAHFs. That's a really interesting area because it directly challenges some very traditional gender roles about caregiving, doesn't it?
It does. How are they typically defined in the research?
Generally, it refers to fathers who are married, have kids under 15, and they've been out of the workforce for at least a year, specifically to care for the children while their wife is the primary earner.
And what does the research say about how these dads are doing?
By and large, the findings are pretty positive. They tend to be, generally well-adjusted. They report being pretty satisfied with their marriages, with their lives overall. And importantly, they seem comfortable in that primary caregiving role.
Comfortable, even though it might go against the grain, socially.
Yeah, and a key factor there seems to be social support. When they feel supported by their partner, their family, their friends, they really thrive.
Yeah, makes sense. Support is crucial for any parent.
Totally.
Yeah.
There was this one anecdote I read, it really stuck with me. A stay-at-home dad said something like, he'd happily dress up as a bloody fairy if his daughter wanted him to for a party, and it wouldn't make him feel any less masculine.
Yeah, that's great.
Isn't it? It just highlights how these norms are shifting and how men are finding ways to embrace nurturing roles without feeling like their identity is somehow threatened.
Okay, shifting gears again slightly, let's bring in Vygotsky. His ideas focus more on the social side of how we develop thinking skills, right?
Yes, Vygotsky's theory is super important here. The core idea is that our cognitive development, how we learn to think, reason, solve problems, is deeply, fundamentally social. It happens through interaction.
So we don't just figure things out in isolation.
Not according to Vygotsky. We learn and grow intellectually by collaborating with others, by getting guidance from people who know more than we do about something, parents, teachers, even peers.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Think about a child learning a new skill, like maybe learning to ride a bike. The parent provides support, holding the seat, giving instructions, encouragement.
Right, scaffolding.
Exactly, that's the concept. Parents or other knowledgeable guides provide the supportive framework. They offer just enough help for the child to tackle the challenge, but not so much that the child isn't learning.
And then they gradually step back as the child gets better.
Precisely. The support fades as the child gains competence, allowing them to eventually do it independently. So learning is very much a social interactive process.
Okay, one more major theory to touch on. What about what drives us from within? Intrinsic motivation.
Ah, yes. Self-determination theory. This is a really influential one for understanding motivation and well-being.
So what's the core idea?
It suggests that we all have these basic psychological needs. When these needs are met, our intrinsic motivation, our natural drive to learn, grow, and explore really flourishes, and so does our overall well-being.
And what are these needs?
There are three key ones: autonomy, competence, and relatedness.
Okay, break those down.
Sure. Autonomy and feeling like you have a sense of choice, volition, control over your own life and actions. Competence is feeling effective, capable, mastering challenges. And relatedness is feeling connected to others, belonging, feeling cared for, and caring for others.
Autonomy, competence, relatedness. Got it. And how does parenting fit in here? Can parenting styles help or hurt these needs?
Absolutely. Parenting that supports a child's growing autonomy, offering choices, respecting their perspective, even when setting limits that helps meet the need for autonomy.
Right.
Parenting that provides opportunities for kids to develop skills, gives constructive feedback, celebrates effort that supports competence. And parenting that is warm, involved, responsive, that clearly supports relatedness.
And styles that are maybe overly controlling?
Yeah.
Or neglectful?
Those would undermine these needs. Overly controlling parenting thwarts autonomy. Parenting that's critical or doesn't provide opportunities for mastery undermines competence. And neglectful or rejecting parenting obviously damages relatedness.
You can really see this with like preschoolers, can't you? That push for independence, testing limits.
Oh, definitely. That's that autonomy need kicking into high gear. And finding that balance as a parent, providing structure and guidance while still supporting their budding sense of self, that's crucial for nurturing that healthy self-determination.
Wow. It really is fascinating how all these different perspectives, these theories, they kind of weave together, don't they?
They really do.
They give us a much richer, more complete picture of how we develop as social people.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's clear that our growth isn't just about one single thing. It's this dynamic interplay, isn't it? Who we watch, the quality of our connections, our need for a sense of control, the guidance we get, and then that inner drive for autonomy, competence, and belonging.
These different theories, they focus on different angles, but they really do complement each other.
They help us get a handle on the sheer complexity of it all. Human development is messy.
It definitely is. Well, this has been incredibly insightful, digging into these different social learning and social theories. It makes you think, doesn't it? If you, listening right now, had to pick just one factor from all these ideas, observation, attachment, control, guidance, inner needs, what do you think has played the biggest role in shaping your own social journey?
That's a great question for reflection. It really highlights how personal and multifaceted this whole process is.
Well, thanks for taking this deep dive with us today. We really hope these insights give you some fresh ways to think about your own experiences and the social world buzzing around you.